Good afternoon. Is everybody all set? Massachusetts Attorney General Martha Coakley. On my right is Assistant Attorney General Glenn Kaplan, who's the head of the Division of Insurance and Financial Services in the Attorney General's office. And to my left is Assistant Attorney General Aaron Lamb, both of whom, among others, worked with our office on this agreement we're announcing today. Massachusetts, as you know, like many of the states across the country, have been hit with the fallout from the subprime crisis, including all of the ripples through the economy, not just in the housing market, but beyond as a result of that. Since taking office as Attorney General, I have asked my office to focus on, in this area, the various ways in which we could, given limited resources and jurisdiction, be effective in first understanding why this crisis occurred, second, figuring out how we can prevent it in the future, and third, and perhaps most importantly, particularly for today's announcement, figuring out how we can ameliorate or mitigate the damages, not just to individual homeowners, but to the cities and towns where those properties have been foreclosed and abandoned, and also to the entire Commonwealth from that fallout. And so as we've looked at those various issues, we began, of course, looking at foreclosure rescue schemes, and then we looked at the predatory lending itself by originators and lender conduct. We issued regulations, we brought lawsuits, and obviously in the course of looking at these patterns of behavior, we began to, in order to get an idea of the entire picture, look at some of the behaviors of securitizers and those who bought and sold the loans after they had been sold to homeowners. We have looked at where those loans were sold and securitized. How was it that those behaviors may have impacted the process of loan modification in particular, because that has been a very difficult sticking point at this stage. Today, we are announcing an agreement with Goldman Sachs that we believe is in the order of $60 million, $10 million, which will go to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and we approximate the value of about $50 million to those who will be able now to have their mortgages written down, rewritten, hopefully modified in a way that makes them affordable. Let me state that in doing this investigation, we focused, among other areas, on how securitizers, and I stress that this has been an industry-wide investigation that is ongoing. We looked at how securitizers may have facilitated the origination of unfair loans under Massachusetts. Again, we've made a determination, and our courts have agreed that many of these loans were unfair. They were destined to fail at the inception. We've looked at how securitizers may have failed to take sufficient steps to avoid placing problem loans in securitization pools. And we've also looked at whether the securitizers have been generally aware of whether those loans which they purchased and then securitized were unfair or problem loans, among other aspects of the investigation. After discussions in these areas with Goldman Sachs, I'm pleased to announce today that the agreement with Goldman Sachs provides much needed relief for many in Massachusetts. And let me be very specific. We have identified in Massachusetts the areas in which the loans held by Goldman are located, and we have also been able to work with them on very specific remedies for those we believe who have been victimized in some ways by behavior in general, the predatory lending, and in which Goldman Sachs, we believe, had played a role. Under this settlement, Goldman has agreed to significant principal write-downs to allow Massachusetts homeowners to refinance or sell their homes. For homeowners with loans held by Goldman entities, Goldman has agreed to reduce the principal of first mortgages by up to 25 to 30%, and second mortgages by 50% or more. Borrowers whose first mortgage is significantly delinquent will be required to make reasonable monthly loan payments while seeking refinancing or until they sell their homes. If after 6 months a borrower is still unable to find financing or to sell his or her home, Goldman will reduce the principal owed on the existing loan to assist the borrower. Additionally, for loans not currently held by Goldman, but which are serviced by Goldman's affiliated servicing company, Litton Loan Servicing, LP, Goldman has agreed to assist qualified borrowers with finding refinancing options and other alternatives to foreclosure. This is important for several reasons. Those actually holding, those who actually have loans with Goldman entities will get immediate assistance, and those loans that are being serviced by Lytton, which we venture are thousands in Massachusetts, will be able to get assistance, we believe, in trying to, as we have pushed since the beginning of this, find ways to get modification of their loans actually accomplished. We've heard for a long time, for instance, that although people think loans should be modified, actually accomplishing it has been difficult, partly because the way in which this mortgage market has worked and being able to identify the parties, the servicers, those holding the loans, has been difficult. I will stress that Goldman Sachs has been cooperative throughout with this investigation, and our discussion with them, I believe, from the beginning has been fruitful. We appreciate this agreement, and we think that it provides, in one other step, some mitigation relief and some assets for Massachusetts to try to continue to address the fallout from the subprime lending crisis. I'd be happy to take questions from anybody.